Welcome back to the Love of One podcast. Today's episode, The Moon Syncs Your Cycle, features a beautiful conversation with Rebecca, founder of Blume Womb. We explore how women's monthly rhythms align with the moon, the intelligence of our inner seasons, and why understanding your body's natural cycle changes everything. Love of One is completely self-funded, so if this episode resonates, please like, subscribe, or share. Your support truly helps this work reach the people who really need it. Welcome back to Love of One podcast. Today, I'm honored to have Rebecca Akat. She's going to talk about Blume Womb and everything about our cycle. And it just so happens today, as we're recording, it's the full moon in Gemini. So I'm really excited about that big super moon. And talk about how our womanhood, our cycle, our womb actually syncs to the laws of nature and to the cycle, and how we can track that intuitively and into ourselves and, call in what that looks like and that information for us and with our emotions and stuff. Is Rebecca way more about this than I do outside of just my own cycle. Let's just dive in and talk about, first of all, introduce yourself to people about what led you down this path that brought you into this beautiful work that you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Rebecca. I am the creator and founder of Blume Womb. I am a menstrual cycle coach. I work with women. I support them in connecting back to their bodies and their cyclical nature. And what really led me down this path a few years ago, I was very disconnected to my own body, just going through a season of burnout, not really tuning into what my body actually needed. And my body everything felt overwhelming. I felt like I was living in fight or flight survival mode. And so I really took a huge step back because I was really building a business at the time that wasn't really serving my body. It was serving my finances, but myself, like my mental well-being, was suffering under it because I was doing it from a survival mode. And I really stepped away from building that. And then in that year, I just came back to being and just allowing myself to be with myself, which was really hard to do if you haven't done that. My whole entire adult life, I didn't really ever do that. Just knowing how to be and like sit with yourself and allowing yourself to feel what's present. And I always felt like I was a very aware person, but that was a whole new level of awareness that I think that I really embodied in that year. And in that year, I started learning more about my cycle and started cycle tracking, and that opened a whole new door for me where I was like, oh my God, no wonder I feel burned out. No wonder I've been in survival mode because I've been living against my natural rhythm as a woman and live in a world that doesn't support that natural rhythm. Yeah. And through that, I was like, I needed to share this with more women. And so I started the Blume Womb Instagram account, and it just took off. And I feel like it's a mission that kind of found me. Like I never thought I was going to be a menstrual cycle coach. Didn't think that was going to be my specific, whatever you want to call it, title. But here we are. And it's been the most beautiful journey the last 3 years of building Blume Womb. And being able to support women and just really opening their eyes to, oh my God, there's so much that we don't know about our bodies, our hormones, and how it intertwines into every other area of our life. And when we start living in tune with that, we start coming back into balance with ourselves. It's been such a beautiful journey.
I love that. When you started, I noticed in some of your work, you mentioned that you started using apps to track your cycle. I know that there's a lot of women, young women, older women. I myself struggled with which app, and then I just didn't feel like it was really helping me along my journey. What did you find that you're like, yeah, forget it. I'm going to move to just paying attention to myself instead?
Yeah, I mean, I think can be so beautiful and helpful with technology. There's a time and place for it always, especially if you're new to cycle tracking and then just opening yourself up to it. But I do think in many ways they can be really disconnecting because you're not actually tuning into your body and where your cycle is at, especially if you're using an app that is just predicting where you're at in your cycle, and it's telling you you're ovulating around day 14 of your cycle and you're bleeding on this day. It's using something called the calendar rhythm method, which it's just calculating that around day 14 you're ovulating, and if you're on a 28-day cycle, you're bleeding every 28 days, right? So in that, like, most women don't ovulate day 14. They will ovulate, and every cycle can be different. They can ovulate later or earlier. I'm on a 28, 29-day cycle, but I ovulate down around day 16 every single month. I'm not at day 14. So it's like every woman's cycle is so different. And so I'm such a big advocate for women tracking their cycle with a written cycle tracker and just learning the fertility awareness method, learning their cervical mucus changes, tracking with their basal body temperature, and yeah, tuning into their specific cycle versus relying on an app to tell them where they're at. Because again, it can be so disconnecting when someone tells you, oh, you're about to ovulate, but actually you're like either past it or you still have a few days. And also just in the energetic and the emotional aspect of it, it's like you're really relying on someone else to have authority over your body versus you taking charge of your own body and your own fertility and like knowing exactly what's going on in your body, how you're feeling, how your energy is shifting, noticing your cycle signs, your emotions, all these shift throughout your cycle because they do. And when you start paying attention to it, you really can feel. And I feel like I'm at this point with my cycle where I'm like, I don't even have to track my basal body temperature or my cervical mucus anymore, which I still do. But if I wouldn't, I'd be able to feel my emotional shifts, my energetic shifts, because I'm so in tune with that. I know exactly, oh, I just ovulated because my energy is shifting into going more inward. Like I can feel that in my body now. And that's my goal for every woman to just be able to be that in tune with their body, being like, oh, I just ovulated. Okay. Like I feel how I'm shifting throughout the cycles. Yeah. So I'm a really huge proponent of using a written tracker. I've created a cycle journal for that reason too, for women to use something that is tangible. And I use the only app that I use is to track my basal body temperature because I use a ring to track my basal body temperature when I'm sleeping. But then I put that down into my journal and use my journal daily. So it's the only reason I use an app is for that technology purpose. But otherwise, I don't let the app tell me. Even like with the basal body, the temperature tracking, it will estimate when you've ovulated or when you're going to ovulate. And that's always accurate. So you really have to you need to educate yourself around your body and really see what the app is telling you. And also just comparing like your shifts in your body and your cycle signs to what the app is telling you. Because again, the app doesn't know. It's just using the data. It's using
So
an
it's
algorithm. So yeah.
that makes sense. I like the journaling part because I think along my entire journey, it's all about journaling everything. So I feel like everything should be journaled, honestly, because you start to see patterns and everything is patterns. And if you're journaling dreams all the time, you start to see a pattern and you start to recognize. And when you do that, it becomes stronger and stronger. It would be the exact same thing with our menstrual cycle. We start to see patterns in ourselves. Everyone is so different. That's why I like apps, even like astrology. The people that do they people often forget when they hear that it's a certain chart that's for everybody, but it's not so don't take it for what it means. Dive deeper into yourself, right?
Exactly.
They're good tools, but they're not the only tool. You are
Exactly.
the tool.
Yeah, totally. Like you're saying, it goes for everything. Like the more we get into like ourselves in that way, it's really again for women especially like finding your own autonomy and authority over yourself in all these different areas. That is the intention with all of it.
Yeah, sure. I love it. When we talk about the womb itself, it's so powerful. And a lot of women hold so much trauma in their womb from ancestral lineage to our own personal experience and so forth, and past lives and all these different one believes in that and everything. Do you find that when we really tune in and journal this and understand who we are and our cycle as a woman, that we start to clear those things for ourselves and our lineages as well?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think there's so many layers to it, but I think for the most part, like the past couple generations, we've been taught to disconnect from our womb, right? Like we've there's no education around our cycle, and we're just starting. The last 2 years, I feel like it's become more present, and still there's still women I talk to, and they're like, "What even is a luteal phase?" There's still a little exactly, and we just tack it back in history and how women they were diagnosed as being hysteric and being put in mental asylums because they're having hormones. And so and then the birth control culture and just like how that was just such a norm for women to just suppress their cycles with birth control. And so I think we're slowly coming into this new era, this new season of our like collectively where we're really acknowledging that we have a powerful womb and we don't need to suppress it in order for us to be a powerful woman. Because I think for a long time we thought we have to suppress our femininity in order for us to be seen as like yeah, or even just to be like an established woman that is like valued in our culture and our society in order for us to get ahead. And birth control and like putting women into workforce was happening at the exact same time. And so there's a big correlation there where in order for us to be actually valued as a woman, we have to suppress our femininity and kind of act like we're men, right? Act like we're small men in ways. And so
Yeah.
now I think we're realizing, oh my God, our power lies in like acknowledging that we are a woman with powerful womb and we have these hormonal shifts, and actually living in tune with that makes us this incredible, well-rounded woman that is actually really needed in our society. This is what's going to create the balance in our society that we're all seeking and wanting. So I think through cycle tracking and through just acknowledging that we are different and that that's incredible, that our differences make us stronger, that creates this balanced polarity. If we really acknowledge that, but on both sides, men and women, that brings our whole entire world and society back into balance. But it really does start with women just acknowledging, oh, we're different and we can't suppress that. And we need to acknowledge that and live with and chew with that. And yeah, through that, I think it does heal trauma and ancestral things because yeah, our ancestors, if we go way back, they were acknowledging it. And then over eons, like we've been suppressed as women through patriarchy and again, birth control, all the things, hysteria. So yeah, I think we're at the very beginning of that revolution right now, which is really beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. You mentioned the part about moving into our careers and stuff. And we talked before we started about how in the corporate world or in any career-based world with a woman and a man, that we are expected to work just as hard and put into the grind to men, but we are not the same. We are built differently. We work with the cycles. Can you touch base on that a little bit about how
Yeah.
we work with different cycles of the month? Basically, we follow the Mayan calendar, not the
Mhm. Mhm.
world calendar. And so how does that work? I know for myself, there's certain parts of my cycle where I'm like, jazz. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get it all down. And then there's other parts where I'm like, I'm not feeling it today. And I'm really lacking this motivation, but it's because it's
Yeah.
part of my cycle. And for me, it's about the same time every month.
Yeah, totally. So just going back to this understanding like why what men and women are so different when it comes to their cycle. So men operate on a 24-hour hormonal cycle. So their hormones, they peak and rise every 24 hours. We operate on a monthly cycle. It's going to differ for every woman, but it's around 25 to 35 days. And so our hormones peak and shift throughout and go like up and rise and fall throughout the month. And so what we're feeling the first week of the month is going to be look different, going to be really different than what we're feeling the second or last week of the month, right? The way that we operate and the way that our hormones shift, if we work against it, it actually causes more stress and more chaos in our bodies because we're not living in tune with what our bodies actually need to require. And hormonally, what's happening here. So the first half of our cycle, we're more dominant in estrogen. So estrogen is rising and that peaks into ovulation. And that hormone, when we're more present in estrogen, and this is after we bleed, right? After we have our menstrual phase, our estrogen will start rising. And during this time, we like estrogen makes us more attuned to wanting to be social and going more outward. And we're feeling more maybe confident. We're feeling more just wanting to really expand our energy into the world. Whereas the second half of the cycle, once ovulation has happened, we're more dominant in progesterone. So progesterone will rise. Progesterone is the hormone that really it requires for us to go more inward. We need to slow down more. It's and really, if we want to understand what progesterone really does, it's also known as the pregnancy hormone. So your body is seeing, did we get pregnant during ovulation? Are we here to prepare for potential pregnancy? Because if we are pregnant, progesterone will continue to rise. If we're not pregnant, it will drop to initiate another start of another cycle, right? We start bleeding then. But so you understand that it's okay. Our body is like moving through this process of are we potentially pregnant? So it's going through needing to nest. It needs more food. It needs more alone time. Our capacity for being social is just not as present. We are more detail oriented too. We want to clean more. Like all these things shift for us, and if we don't acknowledge it, most women, what happens is they pretend like they're able to show up the exact same way every single day of the cycle, and they pretend that their estrogen is still dominant and they can do all the social things and still work the way they do and work out and maybe not eat as much, even though they feel hungry. They just pretend like they're still the
Sure.
exact same they were a couple of weeks ago. And that's just not the case. We shift and our hormones shift with us. And if we acknowledge that and learn, okay, I'm more dominant progesterone. What does my progesterone need from me right now? How can I best support my body in this way? You can actually start feeling how you come into tune with your body. And especially if you have cycle imbalances or a really intense PMS or maybe bleeds that are really heavy or whatever it may be, like you living in tune with and the cycle syncing aspect will support because you're not resisting your body. You're coming into a relationship with it. And with that, there's less stress on your body and it can actually feel supported. And that's how we can balance our hormones because our cortisol isn't high. Cortisol is really what suppresses our hormones in the long run. Yeah, we could talk more about that. But essentially, just going back to what you're saying with the workforce, we're not supposed to be able to show up every single day the exact same way. It's against our biology. And men are able to. They're able to show up the exact same way every single day. And that's their strength to be able to hold their container in that way. And our strength is being able to shift. And we go through a death and rebirth process every single month. And like women are the keeper of life, but we're also the keeper of death. We know how to go through another cycle over and over again. And that makes us that's what makes us so incredible because we can alchemize this life process on an energetic and spiritual level, but then also hormonally, that's what happens in our bodies too. Yeah.
So you were mentioning, so basically when people don't into to it and don't listen to their bodies and go, then that's when they have problems with like different bleed cycles are inconsistent, they're heavy, maybe they just feel like in their body, they have more cramping. Is that's the case?
Yeah.
That's
Really, it's hot, especially the second half of our cycle when we've learned it's not safe to slow down. It's not safe to rest. We have to continue to show up the way that we did the first half of the cycle. Like when that progesterone is present, progesterone is very sensitive to cortisol. So if we are putting our bodies under stress and we're just pushing ourselves to continue to do what we need or what we think we need to do and not resting, even though we feel like we need to rest or putting our bodies under any sort of amount of stress that is, not healthy, then our cortisol is going to rise. And then with that, progesterone is going to be suppressed. So our progesterone is going to be low, and low progesterone is often the reason for a lot of these different symptoms. Yeah. And there's so much to it, but that's one of the reasons. So making sure we're taking care of our cortisol, our stress levels is one of the main things we need to do when we're looking at healthy hormones.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. When we talk about you flowing with the moon cycle, what does that look like at a high level? I'm actually going through my premenopausal. I'm telling you, I don't try and give it any energy because I just feel, and my own belief systems, that the more energy I give it, the more I'll make it worse for myself. So I'm just flowing with it. I used to be new moon and now I'm full moon. And how do you see that working together?
So the cool thing is that we used to really be able to tune in. Like women used to bleed and ovulate with the moon cycles, and not everyone does that anymore because there's a lot of artificial light and blue light that we're exposed to. But, back in the days we didn't have that. We were only exposed to sunlight and moonlight and then maybe with candles, but that wasn't really messing with our circadian rhythm. And so we were so attuned with the earth cycle because we were tuned with the light that the earth was exposing. So our circadian rhythm was attuned with that. And so now, it's dark out and we have our artificial lights, or we're still looking at our phones before we go to bed. And that messes with our melatonin production, which is what's going to mess with our circadian rhythm. And with that, our circadian rhythm is one of the main things to take care of when we're looking at supporting our hormones. So this is why not going on your phone late at night or making sure that your light bulbs are all my light bulbs are red lights now because I try to take care of not having artificial light when I go to bed, wearing your blue light blockers, going out into the sunlight the first thing that you wake up. Yeah, all those things are really supportive, especially if you're a woman that deals with hormones that are irregular or not in a balanced state. Taking care of your circadian rhythm is one of the main things we don't think about. We think it's nutrition. It's also, but circadian rhythm is number one top priority with all of it because your ovulation is so tied to your circadian rhythm too. And so when we look at the moon cycle, we used to, because we were so in tune with that circadian rhythm, we used to, most women used to bleed with the new moon and then ovulate with the full moon. And we were just so in tune with that. But again, because of the artificial light now, where most women don't really fully align with that anymore. But I've had clients that they would moon gaze for about 15, 20 minutes every single night before they went to bed. And their cycle came back into alignment with their new. So moon gazing actually can really support ovulation, which is really amazing. That's how connected we are to the moon as women.
Yeah, I love it. We don't hear that anymore. They certainly don't teach that in school. And they certainly don't teach about the circadian rhythm piece of the light. And it makes so much sense. It actually, listening to you talk, I was like, oh, I didn't really realize that. And then I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So I do a lot of sun gazing. And I do it in the morning and the evening. And that when I find that I do the sun gazing, I always look at the moon, but I'm usually gazing at the sun. Then I can tell and my body shifts and I start regulating better. So there's a lot to it. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, sun gazing is amazing for that too. It's just really thinking about our cycles getting back into balance is us getting back into relationship with the cycles of the earth. Like just acknowledging that cycle, acknowledging the sun cycle, the moon cycle, being in tune with that, which tunes our cycle back into a healthy relationship too. So it's really, that's part of being a cyclical woman and like acknowledging what it means to live with the cycles and also the earth cycles, all of it.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know we'll get to the retreat part in a bit, but I know during your retreat, you walk the women through different cycles of the season. And how does that relate from a high level perspective? How we should be taking care of our bodies as well and paying more attention to these cycles.
Totally. Yeah. So if we just look at the menstrual cycle and like the 4 phases that we're moving through. So our menstrual cycle has 4 hormonal phases that we move through every single month. And all of these are correlated to the earth seasons, which is really cool. So it makes it easier for us to understand how we are maybe supposed to show up for them or how to best support them. The menstrual phase is very much our inner winter, which if you think about when you're bleeding, it's like you want to go more inward, you want to rest, you want to slow down, you want warm. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's all about really just your own inner winter time. Then we're moving into the follicular phase, and this is really when we're coming into our inner spring and things are coming, like energy's rising again. We're coming back into the world. You think about what's happening in our bodies too. It's our follicles and our ovaries start getting developed. So it's like little buds, like during spring, right? When flowers are starting to start budding again. So that's really what's happening in our bodies during this time. And it's really our inner spring. And we're feeling that energy rise. We're feeling that new beginning. Then we're coming into our ovulation phase. That is our inner summer. And if you think about summer, it's really the heightened point of energy, wanting to be in the world. We're feeling just super like outward. Yeah. And again, it's like the summer is also this heightened point of creation energy. And that's really what's happening at ovulation, right? Where we're releasing an egg, and that egg is all about creation. It can create life with our life force. Our fertility is our life force. So that really is, you're coming into that inner summer, and estrogen is at its peak here too. Energetically, like we're at that peak in that way too, the way that the earth is during summer as well. And then we're moving into our luteal phase after inner summer, after ovulation, which is our inner autumn. And autumn really is all about the letting go, the taking inventory of what's working, what's not working, the coming more inward, the slowing down. Yeah, the just being more aware of like your inner world. And also if you think about the way that our external world during autumn, it's really all about the shedding, the releasing. And so that's what's happening in our bodies as well. And also if you think about the luteal phase, like especially during PMS week, a lot of us are like, oh my God, I have to change my whole entire life. I have to let go of this. I don't know about you, but I always feel the need to go through my closet and get rid of all my clothes during this time. I'm just like all about the alchemization of I need to just get rid of what doesn't serve me. And that's what the luteal phase is all about. And it's such a beautiful, potent phase. But if you don't know what's going on, it can be really tough and chaotic to be in the phase.
Yeah. I'm a big dumpster. We've been dumping stuff and recycling stuff. Get it out of the house. So I get great stuff. Yeah.
Totally. And if I don't get rid of the stuff that I wanted to go to the luteal phase during inner spring, I come back around. I was like, wait, this is so cute. I want to keep it. So I'm like, we're
like paying attention. Oh, yes.
So that's that you're moving through your own like inner seasons every single month. And yeah, reflecting that into like our earth seasons.
Uh-huh.
Our world, our culture hasn't been living in tune with our seasons the way that we should. We have our new year in the middle of winter, when new year is actually like with the beginning of, there's
Right.
no real start of the year. Yeah, with spring, which is what's after that. And so we're all
Really.
yeah. It's so counterintuitive because you're in the middle of winter and you're like asked to set your New Year's resolutions and all the goals for this year, when actually all you're supposed to do is still reflect and rest and be in that season, winter. And same with summer. It's like we take vacations during summer when that is the height of our creation and wanting to do. So we got it all a little twisted here. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Good points to
Well,
bring up.
and so being able to really appreciate the earth seasons and the cycles in that is another way to really appreciate your own seasons and within you. It's a relationship that you build with the external world that then will mirror back in your internal world. Doing that through understanding where you're at in the season and not rushing into the next one, or really opting into what the world's saying. We made winter the busiest time of year when it's supposed to be when we're resting and reflecting and taking a step back from everything.
Feeds. Yeah.
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 Exactly. That's a big thing that I teach within and that's what we also went over in the retreat a little bit, but just understanding like the beauty of the earth seasons and how you are, like women are this vessel for them, and finding that like relationship where you're bringing both, like honoring them to bring them into balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's dive into the retreats that you're offering. So retreats, so you said you do one a year, or then sometimes you host a co-creation hosting with other retreats. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah. So the last couple of years I was hosting them with my mom and my aunt at Aluna Healing. And yeah, so we've been doing those for the last couple of years. This next year, I'm actually going to be in Greece, and I'm going to co-facilitate with another woman who is she's also in this world. She does a lot of like more movement within understanding how to move your body with the cycles versus against it. So we're bringing that into a retreat in Greece in September. But yeah, and those are my main like in-person offerings. I work mainly online with women, one-on-one coaching. I support them in their cycles and support them in really tuning into their specific cycle, teaching them how to cycle track, seeing if there's any imbalances and supporting them in that. And then I also have group offerings in that realm as well for women that just really want to learn more about their cycle and come into a relationship with that. And I feel like with my work, I'm so about the menstrual cycle, but I also dive into all these different themes that correlate to just being a woman, into sensuality, for instance, because that's such a big part of understanding how to regulate your nervous system as a woman, which is correlates back to supporting your nervous system and your hormones. I really tend to not just go from a hormonal perspective. I go from all these different other perspectives too. And I love weaving everything together. But yeah, it's important to see them all from every perspective. But yeah, so those are I mainly work online, and I have a couple 1 to 2 retreats a year that I'll host.
Yeah. Those retreats are fabulous. So I'm going to have a little personal story, because I always like to wrap in personal stories, because I think personal experience is always kind of shines lights on all the subjects I bring on Love of One. But I had sent my daughter to your retreat this last summer, and she was only 20. I think she was probably the youngest one. But she wanted to go. And so we made it happen. And she came back so different. Like, I want to thank you publicly for doing that for her. She just came back more motivated, she definitely speaks up for herself a lot more, which I'm like, whoa, okay, girl, which I really appreciate. She seems just more bubbly, more outgoing than she had before she left. Before she left, she was just hermity, unsure of herself, less confident. And she came back so confident, and understanding her cycle was big for her, because she would have cramps a lot and inconsistent. And now she makes more sense of it, because she did not have the education during school. I would do my best for what I know. So I still learned a lot from your work and from my own research. But so now we share together, and I have another daughter coming up. So it's really helpful. So that's why I really wanted you on this podcast, because there's not enough said, especially for our younger generations. That like when I went to school, there was a little bit about it at least, but now there's absolutely nothing. And I think that is so wrong on so many levels, and we don't have to get into that today. But
Yeah, I know. Yeah, for sure. I'm so happy to hear that things have shifted for her. And yeah, that just the opening of that awareness around her body and her cycle, like it shifts so much for us women because it just
so
makes us
much.
understand ourselves more. And that's the beauty of it.
I
Yeah.
think it also brings us a little bit out of shape because because I think when we don't talk about our bodies, or society doesn't talk about our bodies about what it truly is, it can do for us. I think it makes us feel shameful, and that shame doesn't belong here. It doesn't live in us. It doesn't
Yeah.
belong. And I think that's what a lot of women feel into is that emotion of shame. And we're not shameful. If we have an accident, it's just part of the process. If we cry over a commercial because it's that time where we're really emotional, there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with us if we want chocolate. There's nothing wrong if I bloat 3 to 4 pounds 2 days before my cycle comes. So I know those are not going to be my genes for this week. But it's okay. No, it's
Yeah.
just part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really the learning of having compassion to ourselves and to our bodies and just being like, okay, let me meet you where you're at versus thinking you have
Yes.
to be different or look different or respond differently. It's okay. It's okay. And I think cycle tracking, cycle syncing has led me to so much more grace and compassion with myself and to myself and other women too. And just with the world in general, even with men, I feel it just brings you more into that feeling. Yeah. It's a really beautiful process because we have been taught to shame and to nag and neglect our bodies in so many different ways in so many different areas. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really positive too if men listen to this podcast, follow your work for their partner or for themselves of understanding how a woman's body is so much different and how
Yeah.
to help them through that with ease and grace and not, oh, you're just on your period. Like that is the worst thing you could say to a woman.
Totally. Yeah.
There are a few other things, but that one is right up on the top three.
I know for sure. I have like maybe 2 or 3% of men that follow me. Like it's like 90 something percent women.
Yeah.
I'm always like those, and I have a lot of my guy friends that just like fully understand it. And when they do, it's so healing for women to be like, wow, like I know that women see me, but men to see me too in it, and just understanding the beauty of when a man acknowledges me, it's like there's this relationship that obviously can happen where we can both acknowledge each other, but also men understanding that it empowers them to empower women and vice versa.
Think it
Yeah.
makes a stronger unification of a partnership. You know, we're all understanding each other. We're gently guiding one another through those processes, which is
Yeah.
beautiful because our bodies are our bodies.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Is there anything before we go that you'd like to share to help them on their path? Anyone who's listening today? Just some simple things they can do. Obviously, journaling is one of them. I know that you have a beautiful journal as well that you can offer anyone to even get started on that journey on their own.
Yeah. So if you're like new to cycle tracking or maybe you've just been using an app, I highly recommend it. You can purchase my journal or just get your own plain journal. It doesn't, doesn't have to be mine specifically for the cycle journal, but just start with tracking yourselves every single day. And you don't have to know the fertility awareness method to start doing this where you're tracking your cervical mucus and your basal body temperature, even though maybe you start just tuning into what your body is doing, what you're seeing down there, how you're feeling. But really, when I start working with anyone, I just have them start with tracking what their body feels like every single day and their emotions and energy levels and libido and appetite and just tracking these cycle signs. I call them cycle signs and what's showing up for you and just putting that into your journal. And yeah, and then you can start feeling these shifts that are happening in your body and doing this for at least 2 to 3 cycles. And then maybe starting with getting a basal body temperature tracker or starting with cervical mucus tracker. I normally split them up into doing that for 2 to 3 months and then diving into really understanding like the data of your body. But a lot of times what can happen if we just go straight and collecting data of our basal body temperature stuff, we're not actually connecting to our bodies. We're just looking at the data point. And so I want to establish the connection to your body first and foremost before we're just collecting a bunch of data points. So doing that for at least 2 or 3 cycles and then looking into, okay, then let me start incorporating, tracking my temperature so I can see when I'm ovulating and all of that. Yeah, so start with that if you're new to cycle tracking, and that in itself will shift so much for you already because you're just going to start tuning into your body and like the way you're shifting and acknowledging that, honoring that more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so informational. I even had a few, oh, I didn't know that moment. So I love that. Thank
Wow.
you for all the work you put out to the world. And I think we could all walk away with saying, just go outside, food gaze, sun gaze, start working with Earth again. She's a beautiful planet. She has so much to offer us. We often forget. And it starts with our cycle, I think, too, especially as women. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It does. It does. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm always love talking about this, all of
Oh,
it. So,
no, you're very passionate about it. It comes through very easily.
yeah. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rebecca. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing more of your work in the future.
Thank you.
To learn more about Rebecca's work and explore her journals, programs, and upcoming offerings, you can visit blumewomb.com. All of her links are in the show notes below. Thank you for joining us for The Moon Syncs Your Cycle.